What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a very special From Screen to Shelf review. I'm actually excited to talk about this one. This one's going to be completely spoiler free. I don't really think there's anything that I really need to dive into with spoilers about this movie at all. I feel like I can judge it fairly, completely spoiler free. So, whenever it comes to The Crow 2024, I never watched the trailer, but I definitely saw like the production stills and the images that they were releasing. And I'm a massive Skarsgard fan. I don't know if I've really talked about that on here, but I always look forward to every single one of his projects, including like Boy Kills World. I think he was phenomenal as Pennywise, and I just think he's all around great actor. So I always get excited whenever he gets, especially a role like that's. I feel like is pretty iconic, especially with Brandon Lee, rest in peace, and his iconic performance in the original one. So, this movie was directed by Rupert Sanders, and he has a rather small filmography, but all of them are recognizable. He did Snow White and the Huntsman, and he also did the Ghost in the Shell live action homage movie, however you want to say it. And I I'm not the biggest fan of Snow White and the Huntsman. I think it's a really well shot movie. I That's one of the things and why I look forward to his work. I think both movies before this were extremely well shot, and this one was no exception. I think Ghost in the Shell is an overhated movie. I don't think it's amazing, but I absolutely love, and I think it's just visual eye candy on your screen 20 like the entire runtime. So I was especially excited for this one, and I can definitely say that if you're a fan of like his camera work and like the way that he puts his films together, you won't be disappointed. I think he does an absolutely phenomenal job with this. Alexander Skarsgård absolutely kills it. FKA Twigs, she absolutely kills it as that's our duo and our couple that we follow along in this movie. And I can sit here and say also that this probably has a top 10 like opening credits I've ever seen. It just so beautifully done, and I can't wait to get my hands on the 4K of this movie and see how it looks, especially on OLED because it's such a dark movie. And I didn't go see it in Dolby this time. So I will definitely say that this movie surprised me, especially with how bad were people talking about it, everything. But I went into this knowing and having read even the comic books or the graphic novels from the time that the original one's based off of. A lot of people seem to think that this is a remake of a movie, but it's just coming from a different source material. And I can go and get it out of the air that this movie is completely different. There's very little, if there's really nothing I can think about outside of there being a crow in both the movies that this shares really any resemblance with. Our Eric Draven in this is a little bit different, quite a bit differently, but in the core function, the same. That's really where the similarities start and stop simultaneously. So I absolutely love Skarsgård's portrayal, and I really liked FKA Twigs. Like I had already said, this movie, while it wasn't perfect and it wasn't ever boring, I was constantly glued to the screen. The cinematography in this movie was awesome, and the score was awesome as well. Correct me if these are just live thoughts because I just thought of this. I'm just going to say it live. Correct me down below if I'm wrong and if you have seen it, but I'm almost positive that's the theme song. I could be saying the wrong movie, but from Ready or Not, that they repurposed and resampled. But maybe that's an iconic sample that I just really haven't caught on to, but that sounded like from Ready or Not. So, anyways, off of that, love the score. There was only really like a couple of songs, like, not really, but otherwise, awesome ass score. Really, really, really goth, synthy, and just very, very, very appropriate for the visuals on screen all the time. This movie has some of the best, like, of the year, probably. Some of the, like, coolest and best shot, like, action sequences I had seen. I'm not trying to sit here, so don't say I'm saying everything's perfect. In the 3rd act, like, almost everything that happens in the 3rd act is just fucking awesome, and it goes like, "Well, how far can you push this ability? How far can you push this?" And it gives you all of that, and it's just fucking awesome. I loved it. Now to kinda get to the nitty-gritty of it, I think this movie is definitely better once you hit the 30-minute mark, and I'm not saying there's nothing really wrong with the first 30 minutes. I'd say unique to a degree, but generic at worst. For the first 30 minutes, it's a romance story, but it presents its own ideas and its own way of telling it, so I think that's honorable to a degree. Once you hit the 30, I would say 45-minute mark, like whenever he becomes the Crow, and again, that's not a spoiler because it's kinda the movie's called The Crow, but once you turn off your, like, "Well, wait, didn't wait, what?" Like, once you kinda stop doing that after he becomes the Crow, it becomes immensely more fun because I was trying to say, and again, this isn't spoilers, but, like, the abilities that they list out, which really is almost nothing except for, like, 1, sorta 2 things. It's like, I guess, more or less, again, no spoilers. Your list of abilities isn't to suddenly become Jason Bourne, and that's kinda throws me off a little bit. But again, once you kinda just stop thinking about that, it's like, "What the fuck ever." It's just a blast. I had a lot of fun. It's actually even really hard for me to give a score on. I can't praise the cinematography, the way that it's shot. The script was okay, it was fine. Felt like they could have done a little bit of better in some departments, but then it absolutely wowed me in others. This is a big surprise of the year for me. The way that people were talking about this and how bad the trailer looked, I never caught the trailer, never saw the trailer. I figured I was gonna be in for another, like, really bad movie, and there's been a lot of them lately, really a lot this year, and so I was just really hoping there wasn't that because I love Skarsgard that much as, like, a modern actor. I think he's absolutely stellar. So once you kinda approach it that way, if you think about some of the things too much or the interconnected dialogue, I would sit here and say that you're probably gonna have a little bit less fun if you're trying to make a logical sense out of a comic book movie. But I mean, it does ground itself in reality within the confines of the universe that it's presenting you. It does ground itself in reality to the degree where it's like, okay, well, like the physics, this and that. Okay, I see. So all in all, I had a really really good time with this one. There's again, there's a little bit I would do differently, but I always say on here, I take it for what you present for me, not for what I want. Otherwise, I'd be a movie director, you know. So it's really hard for me to gauge it. If you turn your brain off and just embrace the gorgeous world that it's giving you and the story that it's giving you, and just have fun with every action sequence and everything that it does in that degree, uh, and and also, I need to add this, do not compare it to the original. Again, they're both adapted from a comic book. They are not the same movie. They are completely different, and it's trying to be that way. It's not trying to do literally any scene from the first one. There's not even a scene or homage I can think of that's in this one. So especially if you don't think of it that way, you could easily walk away saying this movie was a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. Very easily. And that's a lot of the camp that I land on. I'm not sure. I need to rewatch it again if I want to give it like a 7 or something even higher. Right now, I'm sitting at a 6.5, and I just got out of the theater, coming to you live right after that. If you overthink some of the things, like I said, like, wait, they didn't necessarily say that was one of his abilities, or like, start trying to interconnect the dots and the strings, this movie might be a 5 at the worst to you. I don't see how you could walk away hating this movie. I could see how you could walk away and say that's generic at worst, but again, I think that's kinda discrediting it because I think it does have a unique identity that is worth your time of going to see. The runtime really flies by. I think it has an interesting story that should have been fleshed out a little bit with how hard it focuses on it. More or less, it just kinda gives you, like, these little blasts and bursts to a degree. That's really kinda my really only nitpick with it. So, that's gonna wrap up this review, guys. Go ahead, comment down below if you saw it, please let me know. I'd be very curious. Spoiler free, of course. Let's leave it spoiler free down there in the chat so people don't meander into spoilers. Let me know what you thought about The Crow 2024. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, guys, this is me signing out. See you.